everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey, that was the best one we did without Shannon. That was a good one.
I just had Shannon the other day. We were doing the review for Bad Batch, which will be out tomorrow, and I watched him closely. So I've been monitoring how he has the gravel down in the bottom of his throat to try to get close. We'll see. But
for all of you that hate that intro, we're sorry. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. So we're gonna be doing that from our caskets at our funerals, and you can continue to think it's dumb because you're not wrong, but we're not stopping.
Yeah. As soon as they bury me, I want you guys to go, hey, as soon as the coffin goes into the ground. That would be very funny. But yeah, we are back for another episode here of the Geek Buddies. We're excited to be talking about a lot of things going on in the world of geekdom, including some comments about Avatar getting renewed for seasons 2 and 3. If you've watched our Last Airbender review, it's up there for you all to, or if you haven't watched it, it's up there for you all to enjoy. We're going to get into some Superman James Gunn stuff. We're going to get into some trailers that dropped this weekend. Mike and I are going to go toe-to-toe over Zack Snyder's comments about both Barbie versus Rebel Moon and Batman. So strap in for that one. We're going to have us lead in. That's going to be our main topic. But let's introduce ourselves. For those of you who may be new and stumbled upon our show, I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer, animated TV shows and movies.
Yes, and Strawberry Shortcake, what can you say about that? The show that you and Shannon have been
Shannon's not here. And you can see our work currently on Netflix and YouTube. Strawberry Shortcake seasons 1, 2, and 3 are currently airing on YouTube. Strawberry Shortcake seasons 1 and 2 are currently on Netflix, along with Strawberry Shortcake and the Beast of Berry Bog and Strawberry Shortcake's Perfect Holiday, the CG specials, with 2 more CG specials set to come out this year on Netflix. So a lot of Strawberry Shortcake. In fact, I will be attending the GLAAD Awards next week. Ooh, very fancy, because nice. Strawberry Shortcake got nominated for its 3rd GLAAD Award for representation in preschool animation. So thank you. Yeah. Okay, calm down.
I can't turn it off once it starts going. So
but yeah, so we're going to the GLAAD Awards next week, and nice. I'm going to be hanging out with a bunch of LGBTQ creators and having a grand old time. So I'll tell you guys all about that next week.
That's awesome. I hope my brother Mark and Draco ends up going. I always love Mark, and good to see him be a part of it. It'd be great. But congratulations, Michael, and congratulations, Shannon, as well. And as you've noticed, Shannon McClung, who our usual third amigo, is not riding with us today. He's got some personal stuff that he's handling today. Send out some good thoughts for Shannon, but he will be back next week, and you can see him tomorrow when we drop our review of the most recent episode of Bad Batch here on the Outlaw Nation. But this is the Geek Buddies. The way the show works is each of us, and the way we're working it now, we're going to bring up some geek news items, talk about it amongst ourselves, and take some breaks in between and get into our massive topic. As I said, Mike and I battling over Zack Snyder's comments on the Joe Rogan show. But we're going to start with some positive stuff here, some surprising stuff for Avatar: The Last Airbender. Michael, what do you got for this?
Well, it's back. That's what I got. Netflix announced this week that not only were they picking up a Avatar season 2, but they were going to go ahead and pick up season 3 as well, rounding out the tale of Aang, the latest Airbender, and his journey to defeat the Fire Lord Ozai. In fact, the Fire Lord himself, Daniel Day Kim, went on. There's a great video going around of him announcing to the entire cast that they got picked up. He screws with them a little bit, gets them a little bit upset, gets them a little depressed, and then hits them with the winner. And honestly, and I gotta say this, like, I know, if you've listened to our spoiler review, you know our feelings about Avatar, the first season of the live action series, were mixed. There was some stuff that we enjoyed, a lot of stuff that we thought was problematic, but I gotta tell you, watching the joy on the cast's face when they find out that they get to do the entire run of Avatar, books 2 and books 3, it made me happy. And I've been talking to a lot of friends, and there's a lot of opinions. Avatar is one of those shows, much like some of our other geek brands, where opinions, depending on your love of the animated series, depending on your knowledge of the animated series, are all over the place. Some people love the live action series. Some people really were disappointed in the live action series, and a lot of people are scattered throughout. But everyone that I've talked to is genuinely excited that we're getting more. Book 2 and book 3 are really, really strong stories with some really, really strong characters coming along, and Netflix executives, showrunners, they pay attention to what everybody says on social media as well. So hopefully we get some better wigs, some stronger performances. And the good news is both book 2 and book 3, and a lot of people have said this, I've seen a lot of people talking about this online, are more straightforward stories than book 1. So the challenge that they had in book 1, weaving so many different stories together, which got a little messy in those middle episodes of the live action season, book 2 and book 3 are pretty straight shots. So I think they may have an easier time coming up with a strong through line. So although I had my disappointments and frustrations, I am genuinely excited. John, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit harsher than the two of you in our spoiler review, but not too harsh, I think. I've gone harsher on other things because there was potential here. And I think that's the place that I was coming from when I watched the series. It's certainly what you can say about a series that really denotes that it has promise is that it gets better as the season goes along. And I think that's an important thing to note here. The show got better as the season went along and finished with 2 good episodes here. So clearly maybe they had to work some stuff out, figure stuff out, put it all together. And then they realized, okay, this is the formula. Now we're cooking. So hopefully this is the momentum they go into with season 2 and 3. That being said, seasons 2 and 3, that being said, watching the video, I mean, you can't help but feel overjoyed for these kids, see their natural reaction to it all. I love how Paul Lee just keeps the stern face the whole time. But like overall, just seeing their reaction, their joy and their happiness, because there's a sense of real ownership and pride, right? In bringing this story to life, to live action. Yeah, maybe they didn't get it all right. And clearly a lot of reviews would say they didn't get it all right in the first season. But that doesn't mean with an opportunity to do seasons 2 and 3, they won't correct some of these mistakes or some of these errors or some of these missteps and deliver better seasons that will add to the lore and add to the enjoyment and get people to reappreciate the animated series even more. Am I safe to go and watch season 1 now of the animated series? Because nothing will, like whatever's 2 and 3. Am I safe?
I am very glad you said that because I was about to ask you. I've seen a lot of people in our comments and a lot of people on Twitter asking if you are going to watch the animated series.
I will happily watch it if I'm safe to watch it now. Like
you are absolutely. Yes. You are. So I literally I think one of the things that's one of the stronger aspects of the live action series is those last 2 episodes in the Northern Water Tribe.
Yes.
Are that's the pace that I want the show to go at. And it is almost exactly what happens in the very end of book 1 of Avatar. So if you were to watch book 1 of Avatar, I think you'll find the first half of the season a little slow because a lot of the episodes are just standalone episodes and just kind of fun adventures with Aang and the gang. But you will see the stuff that you saw in the live action series. You'll be like, oh, that's where they pulled that. Oh, this is this episode. Oh, this is this episode. And then by the time you get to the end, you're going to be like, oh yeah, this is pretty much exactly what they did in live action. So I think you will enjoy it. I am more than happy to watch some of it with you. I will sit and watch any episode of Avatar or Korra with literally anybody. Because it's that good. And I'm actually well into book 2 right now because as soon as I finished season 1 of the live action series, I just jumped back over to the animated series on Netflix and kept going. So I've watched the show multiple times now and I don't see any sign of that slowing down.
Yeah, and I imagine judging from the timetable of the first season, maybe we won't see this till 2026. So although it's exciting, people are probably going to have to wait a bit before they see the next season. Don't you think, Mike?
I think that's going to take a minute, but I think that's one of the reasons why they picked up both seasons. I mean, obviously the show's doing really well for them because whether people are loving it, not loving it, disappointed in it, thrilled by it, a lot of people are watching it. It's doing really, really well for Netflix. So it was kind of a foregone conclusion. Like this is a big show for them. It's doing well. They're going to do more. But also that cast isn't getting any younger and puberty is coming and it's coming fast for some of them. So doing these 2 seasons back to back, they're going to just like shoot straight through. So I think we'll have a little bit to wait for season 2, but I think we'll have a little bit less time to wait for season 3.
Yeah, and just to let people know just a little bit of the facts on the viewership numbers, they were number 1 on the English TV list for 2 weeks in a row. This past week, they were number 1 again with 19.9 million views. They reached the top 10 in 92 countries, and they were number 1 in 76 of the 92 countries. So that's pretty incredible when you look at the numbers for something like Avatar: Last Airbender. So whatever the critics' issues were with it, clearly there was enough magic here, enough interest to see this series that translates into that many views, and the fact that it carried over into a second week, Mike, tells me that it did appeal to quite a number of people who were willing to go back and watch it over again, or were convinced by their friends through word of mouth to go and watch it and take a chance on it in the second week. So
I was telling some friends. Yeah, I was telling some friends this week. I go by. I mean, obviously, we read the stats, we look at the articles, we look at all of the box office and ratings news that comes out. But I usually go by the gay gym test.
Please explain the gay gym test, the GGT, please.
When I am at the gym with my trainer in the morning and we are working out and there are other people at the gym with their trainers and everyone is chatting with their trainers, I just kind of listen, see what people are talking about. And it is almost a surefire way to know what is doing really, really well in pop culture.
Wow.
In the past 2 weeks at the gym, there have been 4 things and only 4 things that people have been talking about. Yes. Avatar, the live action series on Netflix.
Okay.
Dune 2.
Yes.
Shogun.
Oh, yes.
And The Traitors on Peacock. That is the 4 things that everyone is talking about. And those 4 things are all doing really, really well. So give it up for the gays at the gym. They know what to talk about.
I'm sure. I hesitate on Traitors. Maybe it's time to take a chance on that on a Sunday.
Oh, last night was the finale and the reunion show of season 2.
Wow.
And I will tell you right now, I slept on Traitors for a minute.
Yeah.
And all of our friends are watching it. And last weekend, I was like, I guess I'll dive in on season 2 because I know the finale is coming up. Maybe I'll catch up in time.
Yeah.
And I watched 10 episodes in 2 days.
Wow.
And last night, I started season 1 of the UK version of Traitors.
Right.
Because I'm so obsessed with it that I need more Traitors in my life.
Yeah, I'm this way with Love is Blind, so I totally get it. And that reunion will be next week. But now that those episodes are pretty much done, maybe it's time to jump into Traitors and take a look, see what we got there. All right, so we'll see. With Avatar, Last Airbender, we'll see seasons 2 and 3 coming. And as Michael said, those kids ain't getting any younger, so I'm sure they're going to be shooting them all back to back to back to back to knock them out, because already Zuko's looking a little older, man. So we're going to see how that's all going to work out.
Everybody in the comments below, tell Johnny that he needs to start the animated series ASAP. Please. Thank you so much.
Yes, because I have no other things to watch. You're right. All right, let's move on here to our next story. And let's talk a little James Gunn. Mike, he was asked on Threads. James Gunn can't resist social media. This is either going to work great or this is going to be a terrible thing by the end. But he can't resist social media. He was on Threads. He does kind of camp out on Threads mostly. And he answered a comment from someone who asked him what were his influences for Superman. So he took to his Instagram, posted this, and put up a bunch of things that animated him. And he even led it with someone on Threads asked what's inspiring our Superman movie other than the Donner films. But there are too many. There's too many to count. So he listed some here. This is obviously Superman number 1. This is the very famous Superman panel where he, I think it's Adventures of Superman, where he goes and consoles a suicidal teen, which looks a little bit like Dream, right? A little bit like Dream from the Sandman series. This is the old school Superman animated stuff from like the 1940s.
The Max Fleischer.
The Max Fleischer stuff. Then we have this panel here.
Panel from Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow that wrapped up Superman's Silver Age story.
Okay. And then this panel here.
Superman and Friends, which people are very excited about because this is the cheesy AF era of Superman with Supergirl and Bizarro and the Legion of Superheroes and Mr. Mxyzptlk and Crypto. And so this is the super family.
There we go. And then we have this. This is Michael's greatest dream right here. This guy swooping in. Come on now.
Well, this is nobody's biggest dream because this is Superman from the New 52, which I think most DC fans will agree. The New 52, the less said about it, the better. But James Gunn has said that he's pulling inspiration from everywhere. So even this version of Superman, which was kind of a retelling of Superman's origin and him coming to Metropolis for the first time, clearly he's going to use elements of it.
Okay, fair point. And then we've got this Kingdom Come panel. We already saw the new logo drop last week, the new shield, very similar to this, different color design, of course, but very similar to this. This gets my interest. I mean, I'm so curious what Kingdom Come elements are going to be in. Then the animated series here, which Tim Daly did the voice of. Am I right on that, Mike?
Yeah, Tim Daly is Superman, Dana Delaney is Lois Lane, and that is one of the greatest animated series of all time. So I'm glad that it made the cut.
Yes, and this, what is this? Do you ever get tired of looking at that?
I don't ever get tired of looking at this. Superman for All Seasons is actually one of my absolute favorite Superman comics. When I meet people who want to get into Superman comic or get into superhero comics for the first time, it's one of the first things that I give to them. It is a great Superman comic.
There you go. And then this final panel clearly alluding to the romance that's going to be a very strong part.
And this is sort of modern Action Comics. This is Superman married to Lois Lane in a healthy relationship where she knows who he is. She knows Superman is Clark. She knows Clark is Superman. So there's a lot to conjecture on with what Gunn has posted. I think combined with everything else that he's talked about, it's very clear that this is, whether you like it or not, and I'm sure this will come up in our main conversation, this is the opposite of the direction that Zack Snyder took with Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. It is very clearly, with the exception of Kingdom Come, which, although it is very dark, it is also one of my favorite comic book stories of all time. And I would argue that in its darkness, it shows how bright Superman really is. This is a very bright and shiny Superman. Let's talk about even in using in having Superman issue 1, the Max Fleischer comics, and Superman from the New 52, there's even elements of a Superman that isn't fully at his powers yet. Early Superman, Johnny and I were arguing about this yesterday on text. Early Superman didn't fly. He literally could only leap tall buildings in a single bound. He could just jump really far. He hadn't fully developed all of his powers. So in looking at some of the stuff that Gunn is pulling from, is this a Superman that's not the most powerful being on the planet yet? Is he building into things? This is a Superman that, based on the Alan Moore Whatever Happened to the Superman of Tomorrow panel, he's a sensitive guy. He's struggling with the weight of the world. The All-Star Superman panel of him helping the woman who is committing suicide or is about to commit suicide. This is a Superman whose biggest power is not freeze breath or heat vision or super strength. It's his compassion. It's his heart. It's his love for people. This right here. Which, again, great comic book.
Beautiful.
What I'll say is the fact that James Gunn is pulling Superman inspiration from most of my personal favorite Superman comics and Superman the Animated Series, to me, makes me very, very excited about the direction he's taking. This is obviously in addition to, and he said this in his text, or in his thread, obviously there's a lot of inspiration from the Donner movie. I mean, he has an Otis. He has a Miss Tessmacher. We know that they've been cast. We've seen them. So obviously the Donner version is going to play important. Even, and I'm sure you and Shannon talked about this last week, but in the image of the Kingdom Come style logo, there's snow around it. So feeling like we're getting the Fortress of Solitude. So it's stacking up to be very excited. We all do talk about how Gunn is on social media too much. When Gunn does stuff like this, I don't mind.
Agreed.
When Gunn shares images from panels, this is inspiration. That's great. When Gunn gets into the weeds and starts arguing with people about shit. But I'm excited. What about these images got you the most excited?
Oh, look, everything, all of them, because it shows that he's got a really complete understanding of the character. And for anybody who might be worried about it or trepidatious about it or whatever you're feeling about it, this shows you that he understands the history, the mythology, and the evolution of the character as well. Going from that first panel to the New 52, that's an evolution. Seeing Crypto in here, seeing Bizarro rather, seeing Mixoplex, seeing Lois, seeing taking a panel from one of the stories where Perry White is a big part of the story, shows you that he's hinting at all these things that we're going to see coming. And if he's using Kingdom Come in a certain way, it might be because they've told us that this is a world where superheroes already exist. It may be that Superman has to maybe correct certain superheroes who are going too far with their powers. So you can still have an element of Kingdom Come without actually telling the story of Kingdom Come. And I will say that's the difference between something like this and BVS. Now, I'm not a fan of BVS because they shoved in 4 graphic novels into one movie without making them seamlessly, organically fit in the movie. And I have a feeling James isn't going to do that. These are influences, not taking direct stories and trying to make them fit,
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, Kingdom Come, written by Mark Waid, art by Alex Ross, came out. It's an Elseworld story where an older Superman has just left because the next generation of superheroes are so violent and do so much infighting.
And they said they don't need it. And they said they don't need it.
They basically are like the heroes are almost indistinguishable from the villains. Everybody's killing, it's a bad situation. And then Superman kind of comes back.
Yeah.
And ultimately, after a lot of strife, tries to set things right again. And it's a great story. I mean, honestly, if you are not the biggest Superman fan because you think Superman stories are inherently cheesy, which you would not be wrong about. There are way more good Batman stories in the world than there are good Superman stories because Batman has a lot to pull from. But go down James Gunn's list here. Like, watch Superman the Animated Series, read Kingdom Come, read All-Star Superman, read Superman for All Seasons, like, read Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. These are the stories that will make you love Superman. Yeah. And hopefully putting all this stuff in a blender and having this Superman movie coming out in a year is going to be the thing that makes audiences fall in love with Superman again, which I would be thrilled about.
Yeah, and they've already started shooting, and rumors are they're shooting the Fortress of Solitude scenes first. So I'm looking forward to seeing it once we get some pictures or images from that, because some shit's gonna leak. So it's gonna.
There's a lot of conjecture about what they're gonna do with Batman in this Brave and the Bold movie, who they're gonna cast as Batman. Yeah. But I saw a whole thread on Twitter, and somebody was like, "All I want now that Nathan Fillion has been cast as Guy Gardner is to have that moment where Batman punches Guy Gardner." From the comics, there's where Guy Gardner just gets so much lip that Batman knocks him out, and I'm like, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how it's all, because I mean, we haven't heard about the Batman Part 2 yet. We haven't seen any kind of images. We don't know if the script's already done and turned in. So there's some questions about all of that. So we will see how this all shapes up as it goes along. But yeah, I mean, how can you not feel excited after seeing all those panels? And feeling that we're in the right hands. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll see. All right, let's take a quick break, Mike, and then we'll jump into some trailers here on the other side of this when we come back. The hesitation is my favorite part of that.
From that moment of is he going to do it or is he not? I'm like, I guess somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it.
Come on. All right, let's get into some trailers. Michael, I think you can kick us off with a couple of these. What do we got?
Absolutely. So if you are an animation fan, which I am, we had a pretty good week. First up, let's go with the one that kind of came out of nowhere. Universal Pictures and DreamWorks dropped their first official trailer for The Wild Robot, which is a new feature based on a 2016 novel of the same name by Peter Brown. The story centers on a robot called Rosam Unit 7134, or Roz for short, who must learn to survive in the wilderness after being shipwrecked on an island that is home to a wide variety of animals. Now, this is a stacked cast. Lupito Nyong'o is starring as Roz, the main character. Stephanie Sue plays Vontra, a fellow robot whose story intersects with Roz's. And then the animals in the trailer, which, based on the first viewing of the trailer, I wasn't sure if the animals were going to talk, but apparently they are talking, and there is a lot of them. We have Pedro Pascal as a fox named Fink, Catherine O'Hara as a possum named Pinktail, Bill Nighy as a goose named Longneck, Kit Connor plays a gosling named Brightbill. We also have Mark Hamill, Ving Rhames, and What We Do in the Shadows, Matt Berry among the supporting cast. Chris Sanders, the filmmaker behind How to Train Your Dragon and Lilo and Stitch, is on the project as a writer-director. And the trailer is gorgeous. We are now living in the era of every studio going, oh shit, Spider-Verse looked great, Turtles looked great, Puss in Boots looked great. Let's make everything look painterly and not fully CG. And I'm happy about it because this trailer, even though it has elements of WALL-E, it has elements of Iron Giant. It feels a little bit in something we've seen before, but in a way that we haven't. I mean, the trailer is so gorgeous and so beautiful, particularly later when they're all running from fire and the whole world is bathed in these bright pink lights. It looks like a painting come to life. It looks like a super sweet story. Johnny, what did you think?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Our friend Ross sent us the trailer on our group chat and group text rather, and I immediately jumped on it. I should have done a reaction to it. It's at 5 million views now because people are clearly loving the trailer and watching it over and over again. And it was beautiful. And the feeling you had, first of all, to use that song, and I'm not always the biggest fan when they take these songs and slow them down, but I think it worked perfectly, that version of What a Wonderful World there to play. And then seeing, as you said, the beautiful animation, the imagery, the nature aspect of it all. Here, were they otters or whatever they were at the beginning there, encountering him?
Yes.
And then,
Yes, nature, Dan. Those are otters. Those are otters. Whatever they are. Yes, they're otters.
Nature, you stay there. I'll stay here. We don't want to mess with each other. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And I thought it was cool. And then seeing seeing the scenes of the robot throughout as it was encountering all the different animals there, and the bear, the fight with the bear, all of that. You're just like, okay, so what's the symbolism here, right? Because a lot animation is always telling you a deeper story, more than just what you're getting on the surface. So I kind of love that there's something to explore and interest me here on that end. But then when you see the cast is a stacked cast of fantastic talent, voiceover and what have you, and then seeing that end sequence, well, we're seeing a city and we're seeing something. So what's the connection to the city? And then at the end, we see the bird flying away, and there's there's sadness in the robot's eyes. So what does that mean? Is this an ET situation? Is this my friends are leaving now and I've got to like figure out, in the way it ends, you've got to evolve in order to, you got to become something else than you were programmed to be. So that's a very powerful message to send as well. So by the end of the trailer, I was hooked. I was a little emotional, and now I'm looking forward to seeing what the end result's going to be when it comes out.
Well, you and everyone else will get to see when Wild Robot premieres in theaters September 20th. 2024. So
fuck, man, September 20th.
Very, very excited. Yep, end of the, later this year. But don't worry, you will get animation before that, because we also this week got the full trailer for Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
With which fully kind of gave us more of the story, more of the new emotions, more of everything. So we got to see new animated characters joining Amy Poehler as Joy, Phyllis Smith as Sadness, and Louis Black as Anger are Maya Hawke as Anxiety, Io Edeberry as Envy, and Adele Exarchopoulos as Ennui.
Yeah.
And Paul Walter Hauser as Embarrassment.
Yeah.
So it all, and we also have Tony Hale replacing Bill Hader as Fear, and Lisa Lapiro replacing Mindy Kaling as Disgust. And this is Puberty the movie, guys.
Yeah,
that's
basically
what's happening. It is Puberty the movie. It's that moment where all of the sweet emotions you had as a child are bottled up and replaced by anxiety, boredom, embarrassment, and envy, and you become a psychopath for several years of your life. And it looks great. I mean, again, we've said this early on when even the teaser came out, that Inside Out is such a strong idea, and when you do a sequel to a really strong movie, if you don't have a strong idea, the sequel can kind of suffer. And the first movie was, holy shit, Riley moved to a new city. That's traumatizing for a little kid.
Right.
Nothing is more traumatizing than puberty. It's horrible. And emotionally, you are a mess, and your body is changing in every possible way. So this seems like just very rich territory, and particularly after Pixar has had a few misses, a few movies that some people love but didn't hit, a few things that didn't end up in theaters and just went straight to Disney Plus. This feels like Pixar is back to form. It just feels right. It just feels like they really know the story that they're telling here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough task, a tall order that Kelsey Mann has following Pete Docter, because Inside Out is absolutely in the top of the Pixar films ever made. And for so many reasons, as you said, Michael, the universal story of what Riley goes through in that movie. And there was a gutsiness in the film to take their protagonist, essentially their protagonist, although Joy is really the protagonist, but Riley is where all the emotions live, and have her do something like stealing a credit card to try to get away from this situation and buy a ticket and go to, like, it could have easily veered off the rails, but it didn't, because it has this story about a young girl that's lost because she can't handle the move, and there's too much going on for her emotionally, and she's trying to figure it all out at once, and we're enjoying these emotions, and we get Bing Bong, for God's sakes, one of the greatest characters ever, and we connect to that. So how do we go to the next level? As you said, puberty. And what we see here, I think there's a lot of humorous moments mixed in with some serious stuff, which I think is the right mix for something like this, and some funny moments with anxiety taking, and the battle between anxiety and joy. this battle about who's going to control Riley. Now, bottled up emotions I thought was hilarious to both hang a lantern on it and have the double meaning there. But then we're back to Joy having to go on yet another journey, just like she did in the first movie, to try to find balance within Riley, because we all try to find balance with our crazy emotions at that time. So there's a lot of universal things going on there. But I like the new cast. I love the new additions, like the new characters. And hey, our friend Sario Blue is voicing one of the characters, Margie, that's going to be in this movie as well. And some of the cast members that weren't even listed yet on the trailer, it's a stacked cast of great voiceover talent and actors. So I'm very much
absolutely.
And the animation is beautiful.
We got Sario Blue, Flea, Ron Funches, Dave Goles, James Austin Johnson, Bobby Monahan, Frank Oz, Paula Pell, Paula Poundstone, John Ratzenberger, Kendall Corn Schofeld, June Squibb, Kurt Thatcher, Yonga Ye. Like it just goes on and on and on and on. Like it's a full cast. But it really looks like they've got a strong story here. You know, Riley wanting to like hang with the cool kids, wanting to fit in at school, ditching her old friends. Like you really can see where this movie is going and how Joy and the emotions deal. Like I don't, you know, like, as someone who, as an adult, like most of us, still deals with anxiety and envy and embarrassment and ennui and boredom, you know, like those are things that we still struggle with on the day to day. And so figuring out, watching the animated version of how these emotions, like it's like anxiety doesn't go away. It's not like they're going to kick anxiety out at the end of the movie. Anxiety's got to stay around. But just like Joy had to learn that sadness is necessary, it's like these four emotions feel like they are so much worse than sadness was. And so figuring out how they are going to contextualize it into, this is why it's good to have anxiety. I'm like, really? Because I feel like I could get rid of it and be fine. But you tell me, Pixar.
I like that they all come in with their bags. Where do we put our baggage? Like that is genius. God. That was
so
genius.
good.
So
and we'll get to see this at the beginning of the summer. So while we are waiting for The Wild Robot, we can go see Inside Out 2 in theaters on June 14th.
Well, there you go. Well, now that you've handled the animation, let's move on to something live action. This week, we also got an official trailer here after having had a teaser trailer for Fallout, this new live action version of the video game here. And it's a series that is coming to Prime Video, and one that I'm kind of looking forward to, Michael. I've never played the game, but I am very excited to see what comes out of this series, because some people who played the game are telling me that they're kind of telling somewhat of a different new story here. So it's not just going to be a translation of the game. There's more that they're going to be tackling in this version here beyond what we got in the game. So that excites me. We saw in this trailer, we saw Lucy, who is played by Ella Purnell. She's a, quote, vault dweller. She heads out into the wasteland and only to discover how dangerous things have become. She gets laughed at by some people. She comes in contact with the ghoul, which is what Walton Goggins is playing. But we see Walton Goggins leading the trailer. So is this the same person who led the trailer, who becomes the ghoul later on? I thought the look of it was incredible. I was like thinking to myself, my God, how many hours in makeup was he to get that look, to play just a few scenes every day? It's crazy. It was gritty, violent. There's some goofy humor in all of this as well. There's some playful stuff going on within this, but we've also got some violence mixed in with all of this as well. But the overall look of it all looks fantastic. We get these other actors that are part of this, Aaron Moten and Kyle MacLachlan, seeing him being a part of this. With Dune Part 2 out, Dune's original star, Kyle MacLachlan, now a part of this Fallout series. And we see that she is, in essence, trying to bring civilization back to the outer world, which hasn't always been the motivation with the Fallout series, from what I hear. So this is working for me on so many levels. What did you think of this trailer here, Michael? Are you excited?
Yeah, I mean, I've never played the Fallout games. I've watched people play the Fallout games. I've been at friends' houses while they've played the Fallout games, and I've just drank rosé and watched them. So basically, I'm an expert,
as one does.
You know. But no, and you kind of nailed it. What I love about this trailer, as a translation of the Fallout game, is that it's a really clear trailer, whether you've played the game or not, that you get what this is. Here is this girl. She is sweet. She grew up in this bunker where they believed one thing, and then she leaves the world of the bunker and goes into this wild, crazy universe where nothing is what she expected. everyone is trying to kill her.
Yeah.
Is she going to be able to hold on to that sweet center and make things a better place, or is the world going to turn her darker and evil?
Right.
It's just great storytelling. Like, whether this was based on a video game or not, this is a really compelling trailer. And so that, when you're making those leaps from a video game or an animated series or a comic book into the bigger world of live action, and you know, they talked about this with Avatar, the live action series, and they always talk about this, like, the Fallout audience is going to watch the Fallout show.
Yeah.
They might love it, they might hate it, but they're absolutely watching it. But that is not enough of an audience to make a huge hit for a streamer.
Right.
They need to expand beyond that. And this trailer looks like it has the right elements that anybody watching this trailer will go, oh yeah, like that looks crazy. I want to watch that. That looks cool. And you just get what the main arc of the main character's story is very, very clearly. So to me, this trailer was a big win for them.
Yeah, I agree. And I like that we've got actors that are not necessarily sucking up all the air in the room. Like Ella Purnell is an actress that I don't know too much about. I think I might have seen her in a couple other projects as one of the ensemble characters in these shows or movies. And then of course Walton Goggins is he's fire, man. He's just so standard. How can I say this? He's so solid. He's so reliable. He's so good. He's so electric. So it's a
he's
nice
got crazy in his eye. He's got crazy in every role. Every role he got a little crazy in his eye.
Of course. And then you get Moten, and then you have Kyle MacLachlan. So it's a nice mixture, I think, for me, and some good character actors littered throughout. Even the wife from Succession, Brian Cox's wife is in the show. So I'm really excited to see how they make this work. And it seems like they found the mix of goofy and serious that mirrors the game itself. So this might get me to play the game, to be honest with you, and have some fun with it for sure.
Yeah, because you and I can still play games at our age, as opposed to our buddy Shannon McClung, who gets motion sickness after 30 seconds.
Does he really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
I used to spend all those hours at his house watching them play video games. I didn't know he still gets motion sickness now. That's a shame. But this one's coming up soon, Michael. It's April 11th. So it's not that far away. It's a little bit over a month. So, or as I said, a little bit over a month away. So I'm excited to see it. Hopefully I'll get the screeners and dive into some of this stuff and enjoy it. We shall see. All right. Well, there you go. That's our trailer section, as Shannon might say. Trailers. We'll close.
Oh, we didn't do it.
Yeah, we didn't do it. So I thought I'd throw it in at the end.
Sorry, guys.
You know, it's his segment, for God's sake. So we're going to close the curtains on these trailers, take a break, and then jump in to our big battle of the week on Zack Snyder's comments here on Joe Rogan right after this.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
I think I have a better one for you. Hold on. There you go.
Honestly, I think I matched that perfectly. I think the pitch was right on point right there.
You might have even performed it better, let's be honest. All right. I don't have a bell ring on this, Russ. I would have had a bell ring, but maybe I'll load it on for the future. But yes, we are going to get into this conversation here. Zack Snyder was on Joe Rogan's podcast, an interesting coming together of the minds there. It's a 2-hour and 11-minute conversation or show. I don't know how much of it was the conversation with Zack Snyder, but 2-hour and 11-minute show there with Zack Snyder. He talked about a lot of things, talked about his career, talked about where he's going, what his ideas are, what he's done in the past, all of that. But a couple of stories popped out of the things that he said here, and we're going to tackle both of the big ones here and talk about them and either battle or agree or maybe dive into what he was trying to say with these comments here as we go along. So strap in and get ready for this one. Let's start off with his Barbie comments here. He was talking to Joe Rogan about Barbie versus Rebel Moon. I'm going to bring up this graphic and read his comments. He said, we talk about Netflix, for instance, where you push a button, Rebel Moon, right? Say right now, it's almost at 90 million views, right? Talking about the film that he released. 80 or 90 million accounts turned it on, give or take. They assume 2 viewers per screening, right? That's the kind of math. So think if that movie was in the theater as a distribution model, that's like 160 million people supposedly watching based on that math. 160 million people at $10 a ticket. That would be what's the math? I don't know. 160 times, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's 1.6 billion. So more people probably saw Rebel Moon than saw Barbie in the theater, right? And it's not like a theater situation. You could turn on your phone right now and watch it right here if you wanted. That's how crazy Netflix is. That's the distribution model that they've set up. That's how crazy it is. This model, this machine they've built is really something else. It's really crazy if you think about it. So reiterating his points over and over again within his comments here. But Mike, How far off is my boy Zack Snyder on this math and this analogy and this comparison right as Barbie is about to go up for some Oscars this weekend? Your thoughts here?
I don't do math, so I couldn't tell you. But what I can tell you is it's just an odd thing to say. Like, why bring Barbie? Why bring Barbie into this fight, man?
I was just chilling out. Yeah.
Like Barbie's just over here minding her own business in her dream house, like waiting for Ken to perform I Am Ken at the Oscars this weekend. Like she's having a good time. She's chilling. Why bring her into the ring? He's not wrong that the streaming model for Netflix and for everything, it is wild. Like it is absolutely true that it's hard to gauge how many people are watching your thing because you're not taking into account a household. Like if Rebel Moon if a household in Netflix watches Rebel Moon, that could be one person on their couch watching it. Yeah. It could be 10 people that got together for a viewing. Like you don't know. So Netflix is the whole streaming model is very different. So on the core base of what he's saying, he's not wrong. Like a ton of people watched Rebel Moon.
Yeah.
How many of them liked it? Not as many people as watched it. But like, it's just one of those things that like he chose the exact movie that is the antithesis of his fan base.
Yeah.
Which also is a highly volatile, vocal fan base. Like you've got the Barbie fans, the women that are like, this movie changed my life. This is the feminist movie that I've waited my life to see. I love this movie. I will fight anybody who speaks ill of this movie. And then you got Zack Snyder over here with his army of Snyder bros behind him. And he just pulls this fight in. And then you just watched. It was like watching 300. except with crazy internet fans is what it was like. Just like, how dare you say that Barbie was a hit? Your movie is garbage. How dare you say his movie is garbage? Your movie is based on a plastic doll. It was like, okay, everybody take a breath. And once again, the question with Zack Snyder will always be, did he do this on purpose? Or did he just talk out of his ass and not know what he was saying?
Yeah, it's an interesting comment because I am the anomaly, right? Because I really loved Barbie and enjoyed Barbie and liked what it had to say, and I thought Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach did a wonderful job on what they were trying to talk about in that movie. But I also love a majority of Zack Snyder movies. I like the aesthetic of his movies. I enjoy that kind of overt masculinity within his movies. Whether it's toxic or not is a matter of subjective opinion, but I do enjoy the badassery and muscles and battles and fights and all of that and the harder edges that are a part of his movie, the grittiness, whether it's good or not. Rebel Moon, I thought, was certainly watchable and enjoyable for the most part, but yes, you could pick it apart for sure. It is not one of his best efforts. No doubt. You won't catch me saying that. But so to me, I look at this and I'm like, why would you try? And you have to maybe think to yourself, even though he said on Joe Rogan that, I didn't care that they made fun of me and they made a point of it in Barbie. You know, my wife thought, are you okay? And I said, yeah, this is great. This is fun. I think a little bit his ego was hit by that a little bit. And we saw Sofia Boutella, I think she was talking to Vulture this week, talking about the experience of Rebel Moon and said, I'm doing fine because they said positive things about my performance, but they've destroyed the movie. And that really messed me up. And so she had to kind of go through that in that experience as well herself. So even as a female lead of a Zack Snyder film, she was feeling the pain of being a part of that sequence. So, but I don't understand. I understand what he's saying about the model. I think that's a fair point that he's making, but these numbers, bro, like that is just out there craziness trying to make it seem relevant.
He's on Joe Rogan. Out there is basically the point. But
that's true.
It was just the specific choice of Barbie, and maybe you're right. Maybe this was like a Barbie dug me. It was fine, but I'm gonna dig them back a little bit. But it's like had he said what's wild is, you know, this many people watched Man of Steel. This many people watched Batman versus Superman. This many people watched 300. And then Rebel Moon comes out, and it's hard to gauge, but I think more people might have watched Rebel Moon.
That might be my most watched film.
My most watched movies in theaters. Yeah. And it's the same point. Yeah. He's making the same point. And like, so again, his point underneath it is not wrong. It's that streaming arguably could reach way more people, way more fans, way more households than a movie that's in theaters, the way that we calculate box office and everything else. Like his underlying point totally valid.
Yeah.
But the way that he's like, yeah, and this movie that is the opposite, more people watched my movie than Barbie. You're like, oh God.
Listen, he is not as innocent as some of the Snyder fans, and I'm a big Snyder fan, but I'm not a Snyder bro. He's not as innocent as some of these Snyder fans and bros would have you believe. He chose that movie that was on purpose. As you said, he is on the Joe Rogan show. That is not the audience for a Barbie movie, and so he knows his audience and playing to his audience, and he won't talk ill of his fandom, Michael. And you want to say one thing before I jump into this point? Go ahead. Yeah,
go to your point, and then I'm going to say something about. I'm going to say something about you.
Okay, fair. I was going to add to this because we talked about it on the hot mic last night about this, and I kind of I was doing more thinking about this week. It's an interesting place that Zack Snyder is in because he has essentially made a deal with the devil, with his fandom that can be quite sexist and toxic and misogynistic at times, and not all of them, but certainly there are a lot of vocal people that are part of that fandom that are. He will never tell them to stop, and that's the frustrating part of this, because some directors have come out and said, I don't want, can Snyder stop? But he won't do it. He always falls to the more altruistic sides because there have been some positive things that the Snyder fans have done, helping people in need with suicide prevention, all of that stuff. So there is a balance here, but the fact that he won't call out the more toxic elements within his fandom because he has to have them watch his movies and be a base for his movies, I think is a sad situation that he's in because he's a better filmmaker than that.
It's so interesting. I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue. Somebody else who has a super passionate, angry fan base who doesn't tell them to stop. I don't. It's on the tip. Who could it be? I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it.
Think about it. Yeah.
You are right. Here's something I've said this about John since college, that John has this superpower.
That's me. Okay.
When he's mad at you, that he knows the exact thing that to say that's just going to get right under your skin. It's true. He'll do it innocently, and he'll be like, well, no, I just said it. But it's calculated, and he knows like a little jab. It's like a little jab. That's what this was like. It was like, more people watch Rebel Moon than I don't know, Barbie. That's what it was like.
And we should clarify that's pre-therapy, Rocha, not post-therapy, Rocha. I don't hit the jugular quite as hard anymore.
That's fair. It's fair.
Yeah, but people do try to strike my jugular all the time. Anyway, So and let's move on to the second part. So because to me the math of this is nonsense, but I think Mike, you're absolutely right in that he could have chosen any of his other movies. The point would have still held. But he did choose Barbie on purpose.
But to be clear, the math is not. I'm not gonna touch his math.
Right.
But to be clear, the math is not right. The example, why did you use that specific example?
Right.
Like that's just like throwing napalm on something.
Yes.
But his underlying point that having a streaming, he has made this deal with Netflix.
Yeah,
he does have these movies coming out, and arguably he might be getting more viewers, more people might be watching his movies on Netflix than would see them in theaters. He's not wrong about that part.
Well, yeah, because he talked about the F1 documentary, and he said, 5 people would watch a documentary like that in America. But when you put that series on Netflix, more people are going to take a chance to try out a documentary on F1 because it's just hitting play, and they don't have to make the effort, go and pay the money. It's a different situation. So there is a lot of logic to what he's saying, but he's also being a good Netflix soldier because I agree with you, Mike. This is where he's got his agreement, and I don't know that there's a lot of studios who are chomping at the bit to be in the Zack Snyder business if you look at his box office over the last few years. So this is where he has to be, and he's doing the right thing by trumpeting up Netflix, and kind of like he did with this Vero social thing. He's trumping it up. That's what he does. So it's a smart move. Well, now let's get into even more of the contentious part of his interview, and it's when he was talking about Batman. So let's take a look at his words here. He said when he was talking about people who are passionate about comic books and comic book characters, he said it's a lifestyle choice for a lot of people. It's not like if I made a romantic comedy, the people who love comic book movies, I love that they feel this passionately. In no way would I criticize that because I live the same life. For those guys, it's not just a movie. And so on some level, you have to acknowledge that this is their religion and they feel strongly about it. It's my religion too. I do take, though, a deconstructivist point of view because I care. I want to take the superheroes apart people are always like, Batman can't kill, so Batman can't kill is canon. And I'm like, okay, well, the first thing I want to do when you say that is I want to see what happens. And they go, well, don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. And I'm like, well, that's just like you're protecting your God in a weird way, right? You're making your God irrelevant. And Snyder said he isn't interested in a superhero who, quote, has to maintain his godlike status. Oh, Michael, here we go. Round two. Let's get into this. Your thoughts on these comments here from Zack Snyder in his approach to Batman and his don't kill ethos.
This reminds me 100% of his whole Superman breaks Zod's neck in Man of Steel argument. Mm-hmm. He has this thing when he's talking about it. He talks about the deconstruction of the superhero and how he wants to question this and pull it apart, and that you can't put Batman in a no-kill situation because then he would kill, and like, so we just are going to avoid it, and so like you don't ever move your character forward. And that all sounds very highfalutin and great. It's also not what he does in his movies. Like, he's not First of all, saying that you can't put that we don't want Batman in a no-kill situation is what fans are asking for is not true. Dark Knight is widely regarded as one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. True. And the entire point of the movie is Batman won't kill the Joker, and he just makes the Joker do worse and worse and worse and worse things to see if Batman will come to that breaking point. Yeah. That's what the movie is about. That's actually challenging the idea and seeing how far you can push it. That is dealing with the Batman's not going to kill. If Zack Snyder wanted to do the opposite of that and say, I'm going to put Batman in a situation where he's forced to kill, and I'm going to deconstruct what that does to him as a character and how he did. Like, if we had actually taken a Death in the Family story, that Zack Snyder, as opposed to Zack Snyder just putting a Robin costume in the background with ha 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 painted on it. If he had said, I'm gonna do my version of a Death in the Family, and I'm gonna have Batman get so mad that Robin was killed and he's gonna kill the Joker, and I'm gonna deconstruct what that means. Great. Yeah. Like, do it. That's awesome. That's not what he does. He goes and does his movies and just has people killing people because he likes that aesthetic. He likes that vibe. He likes to have these violent moments in movies. And then when everyone's like, you kind of had Batman killing, or you had Superman broke Zod's neck. And he goes, right, but that's what I wanted to challenge is like Superman hasn't gotten to that point yet. He hasn't made that rule. He says a lot of stuff that's not in the movie. Superman never says anything in Man of Steel about, I'm not going to kill, I am going to kill. If Superman in Man of Steel was like, I will never kill anyone because I'm so much stronger than everybody on this planet. Right. I'm never going to kill, I'm never going to kill. This is a big thing, I'm never going to kill. And then he breaks Zod's neck exactly the way he does in Man of Steel and says, oh man, what have I done? And then Lois comes in and says, you had to do it, and holds him and whatever. Great. Then Zack Snyder did what he said he was going to do. But this is what he always does. He talks this big game about the superheroes as gods, and I'm deconstructing it, and comic book fans are so precious and they don't want you to mess with it. Comic book fans will absolutely let you do anything with a superhero as long as you back it up with a strong story that actually challenges the morals, ethics, and ideas behind that superhero, which is not what Zack Snyder is doing.
It's a fantastic argument you just made. I know. I was ready to battle on you, but I think you've got an interesting point in that, because I like the approach to deconstructing. I always lean, and you know this, and you can look through my graphic novels, I lean towards the more darker, challenging a type of stories that they tell. Kingdom Come was an identity crisis where what's-her-face, Elongated Man's wife is killing people, Dimney's wife is killing people. I like those stories. Spider-Man Reign, Dark Knight Returns. I love the darker stuff. I love the stuff where we explore what is, in essence, the more human elements of what a superhero would be like. That's why I enjoy The Boys. You know, like what it would actually be like if human beings were superheroes. We want to believe that it's be this highfalutin ideals, everybody doing the right thing. But we've all seen in our society, whenever a lot of people get access to power, whether it's money, influence, or status, they abuse that access to power more often than not, way more often than not. So to me, I like when we see that within the construct of the superhero movies. And so I like that Zack has that approach. I like that he challenges us in that way. I liked the neck breaking scene because he followed it with the scream that comes from the deepest parts of his humanity. But you make an excellent point. They didn't lay the groundwork down to make that moment carry as much weight as it could have for his own personal principles and morality, violating him in that moment, being pushed to that moment, and making that decision so that we sit with that decision ourselves, leaving the movie theater. I still love the moment, but you make an excellent point on that end, Michael.
We have argued endlessly that everyone who has ever heard us talk about this knows that I hate Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent, and I hate the way they did Jonathan Kent in Man of Steel. If Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent had said to a young Clark, you are so powerful, you need to restrain yourself, you can never kill anybody.
Right.
And then you get to the end and he does that with Zod.
Right.
Great. Like that's the thing. And I think that's where, when you get into this, and I've seen it because I retweeted the Zack Snyder thing yesterday on Twitter. And so I see everybody on my Twitter feed just battling it out, the people who are fans of Zack Snyder and the people who aren't. And you and I went back and forth on this yesterday, that the Batman not killing is not some Batman can't kill because, oh my God, if he does, the whole that you've ruined Batman. But Batman not killing is a core part of his personality as a hero, of his vibe as a hero. So if you're going to have Batman kill, which you are absolutely allowed to do, figure out a way to do it that's actually interesting, that actually makes the story. Great example is, I think, one of the smartest things they did with Wonder Woman in the past 20 years or so is make the point that Wonder Woman, as a woman, as a hero who was trained by Amazons and is a warrior, has zero problem killing. That she's like, you do bad, I kill you. I'm a warrior. I'm a fucking Amazon. And when she killed Max Lord in the comic books, it put such a wedge between her and Superman and Batman. She was like, I had no choice. I had to kill him. And Superman and Batman were like, there is always a choice. And that was a very interesting story. If Batman had just been like, cool, good job, Diana, you did it. No story. So I think that his Zack Snyder, again, it's sort of what we were saying about the Netflix of it all. Zack Snyder's underlying point about Netflix, which is more people might have watched Rebel Moon than watched other movies that they're going to see in theaters that we say are big hits. Not wrong. Using Barbie as an example kind of feels like a little bit of a dig to a movie that made fun of him. But here it's the same thing. Everything he says about, I'm interested in deconstructing these heroes. I don't want to just take anything at face value. If you tell me Batman can't kill, the first thing I'm interested in is, well, let's make Batman kill.
Challenge it.
But when you watch Batman versus Superman, and Batman is doing what he does, but we have no context for it. And he says, well, this is an older Batman who has changed. And after what happened, you can, if you're a Snyder fan, I'll tell you exactly what you're going to say. Well, this is an older Batman. And when you see what happened to Robin, that really changed him. And so now he's a lot darker, but he didn't used to be this way, but now he is this way. And I'm like, that is a great story. That is nowhere to be found in that movie.
That's the problem.
You can't point me to a piece of dialogue that even implies that.
And I agree with you, and that's the thing that I do concede those points, is that his stories need to be stronger to validate the decisions that he wants to make. I like that he wants to be deconstructive. I enjoy that about his approach to things. And so and I like the violence, and I like the harder edge and the grittiness. I like all of that. But what makes those graphic novels stand out to me is because the foundation of them are great stories. And then the things happen from those foundations, bouncing off of those foundations. And I don't think he 100% gets there with his stories that validate his point of view. So you have to wonder, what's the next step for it? Because again, the Batman can't kill is great. Let's challenge it. Let's confront it. Let's look at it. But you've got to give us a story that leads to that moment, so that when he does kill, you understand the weight of why he's doing what he's doing. There's a difference between killing without abandon and killing with purpose, or killing with conflict. That's more interesting, as you said with the Wonder Woman thing. We saw that in Kingdom Come, right? Wonder Woman wants Superman to start acing out motherfuckers, and he's got to calm her down. He's got to say to her, no, that's not our path. That's not the way we're going to walk. And even Batman in Dark Knight Returns snapping the rifle, saying we're not going to use the weapon of our enemies. So there's moments here that carry power. And I think if you got a better producer, and if you got a better co-writer that would challenge him to create the better foundational pieces of the story. What he wants to do at the end of his movies and in the middle of his movies would have more power and strength to those of us who are comic book fans and superhero fans. So
we were talking about Kingdom Come. We were talking about Kingdom Come earlier as one of James Gunn's influences, and Kingdom Come is the perfect example of this. Like, it takes the idea that Superman doesn't kill, and it challenges it in the worst possible way. The Joker cracks Lois Lane's head open.
Yeah.
And she dies.
Yeah.
And Superman, at that point, there's nothing more that you could do that would make Superman kill someone.
Yeah.
And he doesn't kill the Joker.
Right.
And Magog does, and then Magog gets acquitted because everyone's like, yeah, dude, you should have killed him.
Yeah.
And it takes the entire idea that Superman didn't kill, and other heroes were like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
This guy totally deserves to die. And that drives Superman away. And that is the driving force of all of Kingdom Come. So taking that solid idea, Superman doesn't kill, and going, how do we challenge this in the most extreme way we can and see where we go? And that's what Nolan does with The Dark Knight. And that's what Snyder says he wants to do without actually ever doing it on screen.
There you go. Yeah, fuck. I didn't think I'd give you a point here, but you did. You got it. You made a good point. I had to concede the point, but
well, I do think you made a really good point yesterday, though, while we were texting about this, which is, I think what often happens, not surprisingly, because Twitter is the worst place to have a debate, and yet we all debate on Twitter every day, is that this sort of boils down to everybody arguing about the actual, well, you're dumb, Batman should be able to kill. No, Batman never kills. And then we get all of these think pieces and articles that go through 60 years of Batman comics and say, here's the 13 times that Batman actually killed somebody. Yeah. And then everyone's like, see, he did kill. Well, no, but that's the exceptions to the rule. And like, it turns into this really stupid argument about two fully black and white things that aren't really the thing. Absolutely. And where you're right is any creator, whether it be in comics, in novels, in film and TV, that wants to challenge some of the ideas of this is what you always have to do with a superhero, absolutely should. Challenging these ideas and wanting to mess with these ideas and tell a story where what if this did happen? Absolutely you should. I don't think most people, and John, you're right, some people don't, but I don't think most people are saying Batman can't ever kill, or as Zack Snyder put it, don't put him in a situation where he has to kill, because then he has to kill and that ruins my hero. Right. But I think what people are saying is you either go for it and really dive into that story, or obey the rules and see and push him up against it. But but you've got to have a point of view on it. And it just seems like, although Zack Snyder very clearly has a point of view when he's talking about it with Joe Rogan, as a filmmaker, that point of view is not making it to the screen.
Yeah, because I like to have debates over this kind of stuff, because I think it's interesting. It pushes you, it challenges you, you explore your own. I love to question my own beliefs about stuff, because I think that's a way to reinforce them or to evolve them. And I'm never too precious about any belief I have to not have it be questioned. I may not be okay with it being questioned in the moment, but I certainly don't mind it being questioned, and when I'm ready to have it questioned down the road. And I like the filmmakers that do that. And I think that's where we find our agreement here, is that you wouldn't have an issue with Zack putting a Batman in a position like this, or Superman in a position like this. You've got to build to it and make the story work, so that when that moment happens, both Mike and I are looking at it going, oh my God, what is he going to fucking do? Yeah. And then when the decision happens, Mike and I and Shannon and others can sit at the bar and spend 2 hours discussing how great that movie was, what a decision that was, and was the decision valid, and what will we do in that situation, which is part of the fun of it. And I don't think you need to be reading 45 comic books or seeing all these series and doing all the homework for the movie. That frustrates me. Once upon a time in Hollywood, I should not have to know about all the Manson fucking murders in order to validate your ending. Your job as a filmmaker is to get me to understand why this is important. And so it can be a bit frustrating with that, with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, in the one place where I agree with Zack Snyder, the one.
Wow.
Is when he talks about superheroes, particularly the DC pantheon of superheroes, as these modern day gods. That's absolutely what they are. Yeah, and in the same way that Greek mythology was there to sort of you go back and you read all the Greek myths and legends, and like that was like the guideposts for everyone on their morals and their ethics and their values. And superheroes today are the same thing. What makes superheroes valuable, when we talk about, are we over superhero movies? Do we have like superhero fatigue? Do we have all this stuff? When we get superheroes right, they are a reflection of our society's ethics, morals, values, ideals. So Superman, I mean, so like there, and comic books have both. Like having a Superman who refuses to kill, even though he is the most powerful character in the universe, and putting him, this wouldn't happen because it's two different comic book titles, but if putting a Superman up against a Punisher, who has no problem killing, and that is what his role in comic books is. And having that debate happen, I mean, they do it all the time in Marvel, whether it's Daredevil and Frank Castle, or Captain America and Frank Castle, or Spider-Man and Frank Castle. Wolverine is the same. Wolverine will kill. But Spider-Man won't. And so when those two go on an adventure together, it's not just, oh, well, you have to follow the rules or I don't like the comic. We as a society struggle with this issue within ourselves. Sometimes we want to kill somebody and get righteous revenge, or we think somebody deserves the death penalty, or if somebody killed my family member, I want to kill them. And then other times we preach mercy and turning the other cheek, and we need to understand. And so the fact that we have superheroes that represent those extremes is important. So if you're going to challenge that extreme or change that extreme or tell a different kind of story, that story also has to have value and be important in its own right.
And I think it's important to have the conversation. I know we should wrap up because we're a little bit over an hour, but like it's important to have the conversation. And so I am against the Snyder bros and I am against the anti-Snyder bros. I want to sit in the middle and have the conversation because I don't want Zack Snyder to say something and immediately all these smug, condescending, comic book loving nerds are going to destroy him and scoff at him and ridicule him instead of trying to maybe understand his point and then have the conversation with other people who are trying to understand the point as well. So I lobby for the middle ground here, but between the people who like Snyder stuff, the people who don't like Snyder stuff, but are willing to consider his points in a more rational, logical discussion, like dare I say we just did here in the back and forth between the two of us. So yeah, because the toxicity on both sides, and it is on both sides, needs to fucking stop when it comes to things like this, for God's sake.
Sure, maybe one side can get a little bit more carried away, but that's a debate for another day.
I know what, I think you're partial because they believe what you believe. But anyway, let's get on out of here. Thank you all so much for joining us. That's been our discussion on that topic and numerous topics here on this episode of Geek Buddies. We appreciate it madly. Michael, a lot of fun with you, brother, always. Let people know what we got to tell them here about the Geek Buddies.
Yeah, if you would like to follow us, you can do so on Twitter at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. You can follow Mr. Rocha at The Rocha Says. You can follow me at MKToon. Additionally, you can go ahead and smash that like button below if you're watching us on YouTube right now. Also, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. Mostly tell John to start watching Avatar the Animated Series. But other than that, tell us what you thought of the trailers. Tell us what you think of James Gunn's Superman inspirations, and tell us what you think of Zack Snyder's comments. Let us know below in the comments. If you are listening to us on a podcast right now, go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
So thank you, Michael. And of course, you can always follow Shannon McClung as well at Shannon_McClung on Twitter. And I think at Shannon the Geek Buddy on Instagram there as well. And we're both sending positive thoughts out to Shannon as dealing with things that he's dealing with today. And we encourage you all to just send positive thoughts out to him as well. All right. Thank you all so much. You guys are the best. We love you madly. Have a great rest of your weekend. Look for our Bad Batch review tomorrow. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the
Geek
Buddies.